Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly rise to the top while others, despite their talents and hard work, remain stuck in mediocrity? The answer lies not in luck, connections, or even raw intelligence. It lies in something far more uncomfortable to acknowledge: the willingness to become cold-blooded in the pursuit of success. Today, we're diving deep into the Machiavellian principles that separate those who merely dream of power from those who actually seize it. The world rewards those who understand a harsh truth: emotion is the enemy of achievement. While others are paralyzed by feelings, clouded by sentiment, and weakened by their need for approval, the cold-blooded individual moves through life with surgical precision. They see opportunities where others see obstacles, they remain calm when others panic, and they make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. This isn't about becoming heartless or cruel, it's about developing the emotional discipline that success demands. Let's start with the first principle that every successful person must master: never reveal your true intention. In a world where oversharing has become the norm, where people broadcast their every thought and plan on social media, the person who keeps their cards close to their chest holds an enormous advantage. When you reveal your intentions too early, you hand your competitors the very tools they need to destroy you. But when you conceal your true goals, silence becomes your most powerful weapon. Think about it this way: every time you announce a plan, you create expectations, invite criticism, and open yourself up to sabotage. The moment people know what you want, they can either help you or hinder you, and human nature suggests they're more likely to do the latter. Jealousy, competition, and fear will drive people to throw obstacles in your path, steal your ideas, or simply work against your success. But if you keep your objectives hidden, you change the entire dynamic. You become unpredictable, mysterious, and therefore more powerful. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Humans fear what they don't understand. When your motives are unclear, people become uncertain about how to deal with you. They waste energy trying to figure you out instead of working against you. Meanwhile, you're free to execute your plans without interference. Uncertainty turns your potential opponents into hesitant, weakened adversaries, while you gain the upper hand without even entering into direct conflict. But concealment isn't just about defense, it's an offensive weapon. By appearing harmless, predictable, or even you lull others into complacency. Behind your veil of mystery, you're preparing your next move, precise and unexpected. When you finally strike, they're caught completely off guard. History is filled with examples of this strategy, from Napoleon and Caesar to modern business magnates who turn secrecy into their sharpest weapon. The cold-blooded individual understands that while enemies are playing checkers, they're playing chess. They think several moves ahead while others react to immediate circumstances. This strategic thinking requires emotional detachment, the ability to see situations objectively rather than through the lens of personal feelings or social expectations. Secrecy also provides something invaluable: freedom. Hidden goals don't bind you to promises, explanations, or constant scrutiny from others. You can change course at any moment without anyone questioning your decisions. The moment you share your goal publicly, you become its prisoner. People start demanding progress reports, criticizing your methods, or insisting you continue down a path that no longer serves your interests. By keeping your intentions concealed, you maintain flexibility and the power to adapt to changing circumstances. This brings us to our second principle: master the art of deception. Now, before you dismiss this as unethical, understand that deception in the Machiavellian sense isn't about outright lying, it's about strategic truth-telling. It's about controlling the narrative and shaping perception to serve your goals. The most powerful lies are built on fragments of truth, skillfully assembled to create a false impression. Great deception is rooted in deep understanding of human psychology. People crave certainty, and when information is incomplete, the mind fills in gaps with assumptions and desires. A master of deception doesn't force others to believe lies, they plant seeds of doubt and provide selective truths that lead people to deceive themselves. This is why deception works best when it feels natural, when the illusion emerges not from your words, but from what others choose to believe. The cold-blooded individual recognizes that honesty rarely brings rewards in the pursuit of power. People trust appearances more than reality. A leader who appears virtuous will inspire loyalty even if their true intentions are selfish. The key to success is blending truth and falsehood so seamlessly that no one can distinguish where one ends and the other begins. By revealing only what serves your interests and concealing everything that threatens them, you can create an illusion of openness while keeping your real agenda in the shadows. But deception isn't just about hiding truth, it's about shaping truth. Imagine a chess game where every move is designed to lead your opponent into a trap. You sacrifice small pieces, pretend to be weak, and make your rival feel confident. All of this builds toward their inevitable defeat. This subtle manipulation is the hallmark of the Machiavellian mind, winning not through force, but through the invisible hand that guides others' actions without revealing its influence. However, deception carries risks. A careless liar is quickly exposed. The best deceivers are those who maintain an impeccable reputation for honesty. To deceive effectively, you must never give others reason to doubt your sincerity. Act modestly, behave virtuously, and always tell the truth when it serves your interest. This way, when you do deceive, no one will suspect you. The third principle that separates the successful from the mediocre is the mastery of disguise. Not physical disguise, but the ability to control how others perceive you. Cold-blooded success requires understanding that appearance has far more impact than reality. People rarely seek truth, they seek comfort, order, and certainty. Those who understand this weakness can shape others' perceptions like clay in their hand. Mastering the art of disguise means becoming simultaneously visible and invisible, always present but never truly seen. Great power lies not in what you are, but in what others believe you to be. The world is built on illusions, and those who create the most convincing masks rule from the shadows. A gentle smile, a modest tone, or an act of false humility can dispel suspicion and lower others' defenses. The most dangerous enemies aren't those who openly wield swords, but those who appear incapable of holding weapons. Disguise isn't simply hiding your true nature, it's projecting whatever version of yourself best serves your goals in any given situation. If the situation requires loyalty, become a devoted follower. If you need to appear weak, show vulnerability. If others seek a leader, become their guide. By changing your behavior to match others' expectations, you create a network of false personalities, each designed to manipulate different minds. But disguise requires patience. The most convincing masks are built over time, layer by layer. People trust what they see consistently, not what appears in fleeting moments. One act of humility might arouse suspicion, but a lifetime built on carefully chosen modesty will cause others to completely lower their guard. The fourth principle is perhaps the most powerful: the strategic use of silence. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, those who master the art of silence gain an invisible advantage. Silence isn't passivity, it's a carefully calculated weapon that forces others to reveal their intentions first. When you speak, you give away pieces of your mind, your thoughts, emotions, and plans. But when you withhold your words, you create an unsettling void that others feel compelled to fill. Uncertainty breeds fear, and fear breeds power. The less others know about your true desires, the more they'll try to decode your mind, giving you the advantage without lifting a finger. Silence serves as a tool for provoking confessions without interrogation. When you say nothing, others feel the need to fill the emptiness with their words. This pressure they place on themselves often leads them to reveal more than they intend. The silent person becomes a silent judge, quietly weighing every word without revealing their position. The loudest voice doesn't win, the one who listens longest does. But silence isn't just the absence of speech, it's a strategy of patience. Great manipulators know that information is power, and the best way to gather information is to let others talk while you observe. People love talking about themselves, especially when they feel safe. By remaining silent, you encourage others to reveal their plans, fears, and weaknesses without realizing it. However, silence isn't without risks. Used too often, it can arouse suspicion. Balance is crucial. Silence must be combined with selective words. One well-chosen phrase at the right moment can dispel doubts and change the entire course of a conversation. The key to success is speaking rarely, but when you do speak, every word must carry weight. A carefully chosen phrase can influence others' thoughts more effectively than a long speech. Silence also protects you from your own emotions. Words spoken in anger or impulse often lead to regret. The cold-blooded strategist understands that silence is the best defense against self-destruction. By pausing before speaking, you give yourself time to consider the consequences of every word. This control creates an aura of calm power, making you appear more composed and intelligent than those who act impulsively. The silent person can sow doubt without making accusations. A moment of pause at the right time can make others question their action. The absence of words creates a vacuum that others fill with speculation, rumors, and paranoia. This brings us to our fifth principle, the manipulation of trust. Trust is perhaps the most powerful weapon in the arsenal of manipulation, yet its impact is far deeper than any open domination. Those who master the art of manipulating trust can rule without being obvious rulers. Trust is built on perception, not truth. People crave the illusion of security and seek those who can provide certainty, even if that certainty is hollow. The key to controlling others lies in becoming the person they want to believe in. The world rewards those who appear honest, loyal, and selfless, even if these virtues are merely carefully crafted performances. But the real art of trust manipulation isn't about earning it, it's about using it as a weapon. To gain someone's trust is to hold the keys to their mind. Once trust is obtained, their defenses fall and their judgment becomes clouded. A trusted person can plant ideas, guide decisions, and even influence desires, all while the victim remains blissfully unaware of the strings controlling their actions. Trust isn't won through empty promises. It comes through calculated sacrifices. The greatest deceivers are those who seem to put others above themselves. A small act of selflessness, a gesture of devotion, or well-timed apology can create an illusion of unshakable honesty. People are much more likely to trust those who appear willing to suffer for their cause, not realizing that such sacrifices are carefully planned investments in long-term gain. But perhaps the most powerful form of trust manipulation is selective trust. Those who manipulate trust don't seek everyone's loyalty. They target specific individuals, those who possess influence, knowledge, or access to power. By winning the trust of a few, they gain control over many. A servant whispering in the king's ear has far more power than the king himself. However, trust is fragile, and once broken, it can never be fully restored. This is why the greatest manipulators never openly break trust. Instead, they sow doubt in others' minds, deflecting suspicion away from themselves. They present their betrayals as misunderstandings, unfortunate circumstances, or even necessary sacrifices for the greater good. The victim begins to doubt their own judgment rather than the manipulator's loyalty. But trust isn't just a tool for control, it's also a shield. Those who are trusted are rarely suspected. Trusted figures can move freely within circles of power, gathering information and influencing events without arousing suspicion. The greatest crimes are committed not by those feared as enemies, but by those accepted as friends. Now let's talk about what it really means to be cold-blooded in your pursuit of success. Being cold-blooded doesn't mean being cruel or heartless. It means developing emotional discipline. It means making decisions based on logic rather than feeling. It means seeing situations objectively rather than through the lens of personal attachment or social pressure. The cold-blooded individual understands that emotions are often the enemy of good judgment. When you're angry, you make rash decisions. When you're afraid, you become paralyzed. When you're overjoyed, you become careless. But when you're emotionally disciplined, when you're cold-blooded, you can think clearly regardless of circumstances. This emotional detachment allows you to see opportunities that others miss. While they're caught up in the drama of the moment, you're calculating your next move. While they're reacting emotionally to setbacks, you're already planning your comeback. While they're celebrating prematurely, you're preparing for the next challenge. Cold-blooded success also requires the ability to make difficult decisions without being paralyzed by guilt or sentiment. Sometimes success demands that you disappoint people, make enemies, or choose your own interests over others. The cold-blooded individual can make these choices because they understand that success often requires sacrifice, not just your own sacrifice, but sometimes the sacrifice of others' comfort or approval. This doesn't mean being needlessly cruel or destructive. The truly cold-blooded person is efficient in their ruthlessness. They cause only as much disruption as necessary to achieve their goal. They understand that unnecessary enemies are a liability, and that sometimes the most effective path to success involves helping others while advancing your own agenda. The cold-blooded mindset also involves long-term thinking. While others are focused on immediate gratification or short-term gains, you're building something sustainable. You understand that real power isn't about winning individual battles, it's about positioning yourself to win the war. This might mean accepting short-term losses for long-term gains, or appearing to lose while actually gaining strategic advantage. Perhaps most importantly, being cold-blooded means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. The world isn't fair, people aren't always good, merit doesn't always triumph, hard work doesn't always pay off. The cold-blooded individual doesn't waste time lamenting these facts, they use them to their advantage. They understand that in a world where others are driven by emotion, the person who can remain rational has enormous power. They recognize that in a society where people are desperate for approval, the person who doesn't need validation can manipulate those who do. They realize that in an environment where everyone is broadcasting their thoughts and feelings, the person who remains mysterious becomes fascinating. The cold-blooded approach to success also involves strategic patience. While others are in a hurry to achieve their goals, often sabotaging themselves through hasty actions, you're willing to wait for the right moment. You understand that timing is everything, and that moving too quickly can be just as destructive as moving too slowly. This patience extends to relationship building. While others form emotional attachments that cloud their judgment, you build strategic alliances based on mutual benefit. You can appreciate people without becoming dependent on them. You can work with others without fully trusting them. You can even care about people while recognizing that your success might sometimes require acting against their interest. The cold-blooded individual also masters the art of compartmentalization. They can separate their personal feelings from their professional decisions. They can maintain different relationships for different purposes. They can play different roles in different contexts without losing sight of their core objectives. This doesn't mean living a life of constant deception or manipulation. Rather, it means understanding that different situations require different approaches, and that success often demands flexibility in your methods, while maintaining consistency in your goals. The truly cold-blooded person knows when to be warm and when to be distant, when to be generous and when to be calculating, when to be open and when to be secretive. Another crucial aspect of cold-blooded success is the ability to learn from everyone and everything, without becoming emotionally invested in any particular outcome. You can study your enemies as carefully as your allies, extracting valuable lessons from both success and failure. You can adapt successful strategies from any source without worrying about whether it's socially acceptable or morally pure. The cold-blooded mindset also involves understanding and accepting your own nature. You don't waste time trying to be someone you're not, or apologizing for your ambition. You recognize that wanting power, success, or control isn't inherently evil, it's human nature. The difference is that you're honest about these desires and strategic in pursuing them, while others hide behind noble rhetoric while acting just as selfishly but less effectively. This self-awareness extends to understanding your own weaknesses and limitations. The truly cold-blooded person doesn't let ego blind them to their flaws. They actively seek feedback, even from enemies, because they understand that accurate self-assessment is crucial for improvement. They can take criticism without becoming defensive and praise without becoming complacent. In terms of practical application, cold-blooded success in the modern world requires adapting these timeless principles to contemporary context. In business, this might mean maintaining professional relationships without personal attachment, making decisions based on data rather than emotion, and keeping your strategic plans confidential until you're ready to execute them. In politics, cold-blooded success involves understanding that public perception often matters more than reality, that today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally, and that emotional speeches must be backed by calculated action. You learn to say what people want to hear while doing what needs to be done. In personal relationships, being cold-blooded doesn't mean being unloving or uncaring. It means understanding the dynamics of power and influence, even in intimate relations. It means being able to make decisions that serve your long-term interests, even when they might cause short-term discomfort for others. The cold-blooded individual also understands the importance of maintaining multiple options. They never become so dependent on any single person, opportunity, or strategy that they can't adapt if circumstances change. This flexibility requires emotional detachment, the ability to let go of plans, relationships, or identities that no longer serve your goal. One of the most challenging aspects of developing a cold-blooded approach to success is dealing with social pressure to be more emotional, more open, more trusting. Modern society often promotes values that are fundamentally at odds with Machiavellian principles. You'll be told that vulnerability is strength, that transparency is virtue, that collaboration is always better than competition. The cold-blooded individual can appreciate these values in their proper context, while recognizing their limitations. They understand that vulnerability can be strength when strategically deployed,
that transparency can be useful when it serves your interests, and that collaboration can be powerful when you're in control of the term. But they also recognize that in many situations the opposite approaches are more effective. Sometimes strength lies in keeping your vulnerabilities hidden. Sometimes power comes from controlling information. Sometimes the best collaboration involves one person quietly directing the efforts of others. The key is developing the judgment to know when to apply which approach. This requires constant observation, analysis, and adaptation. The cold-blooded person is always studying human nature, always learning from their experiences, always refining their strategies. They also understand that cold-blooded success isn't about being constantly manipulative or deceptive. Rather, it's about having the capability to be strategic when necessary, while also being able to form genuine connections when appropriate. The most successful people aren't sociopaths. They're individuals who can access different modes of behavior depending on what the situation requires. This flexibility also extends to moral considerations. The cold-blooded individual doesn't operate from a rigid moral framework that applies the same rules to every situation. Instead, they understand that different contexts may require different ethical calculations. They can be generous when generosity serves their goals and ruthless when ruthlessness is necessary. This doesn't mean abandoning all moral principles, but rather understanding that moral absolutism can be a luxury that successful people can't always afford. Sometimes protecting your larger goals requires making compromises that might seem questionable in isolation, but make sense in the broader context of your strategy. The cold-blooded approach to success also involves understanding and accepting the loneliness that often accompanies power. When you're constantly calculating, when you're keeping secrets, when you're maintaining strategic relationships rather than purely emotional ones, you may find yourself isolated from the kind of simple human connection that others enjoy. This is part of the price of power, and the cold-blooded individual accepts it. They find satisfaction in achievement rather than approval, in control rather than comfort, in success rather than social acceptance. They understand that you can't have everything, and they've made their choice about what matters most to them. However, this doesn't mean living a life devoid of genuine human connection. Even the most cold-blooded individual needs some relationships that exist outside their strategic framework. The key is compartmentalizing, having some relationships that serve your goals and others that serve your humanity. The successful application of these principles also requires understanding their limits and potential consequences. Being too cold-blooded can backfire if it leads others to see you as completely untrustworthy or dangerous. The most effective approach involves appearing warm while thinking cold, maintaining the appearance of empathy and social connection while making decisions based on strategic calculation. As we conclude this exploration of cold-blooded success, it's important to remember that these principles are tools, not commandments. They're strategies that can be employed when appropriate, not rules that must be followed blindly. The truly successful person knows when to be cold-blooded and when to be genuinely warm, when to manipulate and when to collaborate, when to deceive and when to be honest. The path to success through cold-blooded calculation isn't for everyone, and it shouldn't. Society needs people who prioritize different values, who make different choices, who find fulfillment in different ways. But for those who are drawn to power, who want to shape their world rather than simply exist within it, who are willing to pay the prices that success demands, these Machiavellian principles offer a roadmap. The question isn't whether these strategies are morally pure or socially acceptable. The question is whether they're effective for achieving your goals, and history suggests that they are. From ancient Rome to modern Silicon Valley, from political campaigns to corporate boardrooms, those who understand and apply these principles tend to rise while those who don't tend to fall. So ask yourself, how much power have you lost by being too emotional? How many opportunities have you missed by being too trusting? How many times have your noble intentions been exploited by those more strategic than yourself? The cold-blooded individual doesn't make these mistakes because they understand that success isn't about being liked, it's about being effective. In the end, becoming cold-blooded in your pursuit of success isn't about abandoning your humanity, it's about channeling it more strategic. It's about understanding that in a world where everyone is playing games, whether they admit it or not, your choice isn't whether to play but whether to play well. Those who master these principles don't just succeed, they define success for others. They don't just win games, they create the games themselves. The greatest victories aren't won through force or luck, they're won through the kind of strategic thinking that only comes from emotional discipline, intellectual honesty, and the willingness to see the world as it truly is, rather than as we wish it were. In a world full of dreamers, the cold-blooded realist doesn't just survive, they thrive.